Hey, this is Chuck Marone with Strong Towns. I'm in our nation's capital at the Lincoln Memorial, which I think is like the most beautiful view here in Washington, D.C. I take that back. I have had an opportunity to go in the Speaker of the House's office. It was not a private invitation. I was just on a tour, and I was brought in just to see it. The balcony from the Speaker of the House's office looks out towards the Washington Monument and towards the Lincoln Memorial, and that is the best view in Washington, D.C. That's the best view that I've seen anyway. This one's a close second. I want to talk about views today because I want to talk about building height. Building height is one of those things that every time it's brought up tends to engender a certain amount of passion, right? And often intense passion, often unjustified in my opinion. I think building height restrictions are in many ways a logical thing to have. I think that there is a certain, well, let me put it this way. I have watched people who I think are big-hearted, who care a lot about housing and unaffordable housing and want to see more and more housing built, get really, really upset and uptight about building height restrictions. And the arguments that they make is we have a housing crisis, we have a housing emergency. We should not have these height restrictions because we should invite people who have the means to come in and build very tall buildings full of housing units. And we should do that at scale. There's a certain efficiency when you can build taller and taller and taller. Don't know if that's necessarily true, but there's a certain efficiency when you go taller and taller and taller, where you can do cheaper units. And this will be good for everybody. Let's get more housing built, remove all these height restrictions. There's another argument, and I am more sympathetic to this argument. This argument comes from people like the Congress for the New Urbanism, which says design is really, really important to building great places. And great places endure, great places are financially productive, great places are cared for and taken care of. And if we're gonna invest money in building things, let's build them in a way where they will endure, particularly when you're getting to the intensity of a city like Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is, in my opinion, the most beautiful city in the United States. The streets are laid out beautifully. The design has all these great angles to it and view sheds. Obviously, the monuments add to that, but you don't necessarily need monumental architecture and monumental buildings to make this kind of design very beautiful, very appealing. You can cross the streets easily. You can walk easily. Lots of trees. The neighborhoods are just beautiful. But Washington, D.C. has some very strict height limitations. It's like the core of Paris, right? Like you can go up a certain height, but not any higher. And that creates a certain feel to the community, a certain feel to the city that is not only very unique, but just very human. It feels very comfortable to be in most spaces in the city. People who are very sensitive to the housing issue say, Chuck, this is a huge burden. We should be building much taller, we should be building much grander. These height limitations artificially stifle things. And I'm gonna say to those people, like, I see you, right? Like, I understand what you're saying. I don't think we have to follow your prescription to get the thing that you want. When I'm here in Washington, D.C., I can get on the subway. By the way, to me, again, the best metro system in the country. I mean, I think there would probably be some people who would argue with that, but it's the easiest to use, it's the most comfortable to use. Everything about it. I'm a small town guy, so I'm not a aficionado of transit systems, but very much like this one. I can get on it, and in 15 minutes, I can be at a park and ride. In 15 minutes, I can be at a big parking lot somewhere. In 15 minutes, I can be at a neighborhood of single-family homes. If we want to build more intensely, the core of Washington, D.C. is built up. You know, I go to these small towns all over the place, and they say, well, we're completely built out, Chuck. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, you're not Paris. Like, you're not built out. But a lot of the neighborhoods here, sure, they could thicken up. Sure, there's places to add buildings. Sure, there's places where you can put more intensity. But you don't need to go up. I mean, these places are getting close to being built out. They're actually at a very viable, very kind of financially balanced, sustainable kind of place. You won't get a lot of redevelopment pressure because they've, in a sense, matured to adulthood. They don't need to change, they don't need to evolve. They just need to be and be loved and be cared for, and there's enough value here that that's gonna happen. But get 15 minutes out, get a little bit out, and you've got neighborhoods of single family homes, you've got places with lots of parking lots, you've got places that need to thicken up. And if we spend the next generation thickening those places up, like we've thickened this place up, those places will become spectacular too. I'm not of the mindset that the way we build affordable housing is to take the stuff closest, like everybody wants to live right next to the Capitol. Chuck, let's build a big tower right next to it. Sure, if expediency is what we're all about, let's do that. If long-term viability is what we're about, this is the optimum place to just keep that traditional development pattern moving out, thickening up neighborhoods, making them better places to live. It's happening here. We just need to keep going.